Hi, my name is RonDaise. I'm Vice President for Creative Education at Brook Green Gardens. Today's presentation is entitled The Musicology of Gullah Geechee Culture, Part 1. What do the words Gullah Geechee identify? It's a language, a culture, and a group of people who are descendants of West Africans who were brought to the coastal communities of the Carolina and Georgia colonies during the 17 and 1800s for the production of cash crops, primarily rice. Now, the prevailing rice heritage of the ancestors of Gullah Geechee people shaped the pitch, the rhythm, the tempo, and the texture of their musicology. What song lyrics come to mind when you consider Gullah Geechee culture? While you are thinking of answers, I want to bring to your attention that the art on the screen is entitled Same Old Sweet Song by artist Natalie Daise. Have you thought of any songs? There is one that comes to my mind, and it is entitled A Mantle Not to Be Denied.
Seeds dropped in the soil spread their roots and grow. Stories to young ears shed wisdom to be known. Lives lived with purpose, like collards in a field. Tell the beauty, the wonder that others long to feel. Plants rise above ground or thrive down below. Values handed down, linked now with long ago. Ancestral whisperings, like collards in a field, tell the beauty, the wonder that others long to feel. It's not the hand-me-down of slavery. It's not the chains of yesteryear. Not the punchline of black history. Not the wellspring of despair. Gullah Geechee culture fills me full of pride. It's a gift from the ancestors, a mantle not to be denied. Life day I gathered full of good things for yam, tack the bitter to sweet, and learn and understand. Lives lived with values, like collards in a field. Tell the beauty, the wonder that others long to feel. It's not the hand-me-down of slavery. It's not the chains of yesteryear. Not the punchline of black history. Not the wellspring of despair. Gullah Geechee culture fills me full of pride. It's a gift from the ancestors, a mantle not to be denied. Yeti wadeya, catch the line and study what you see, understand. It's not the hand-me-down of slavery. It's not the chains of yesteryear. Not the punchline of black history. Not the wellspring of despair. No, Gullah Geechee culture a gift from the ancestors, a mantle not to be denied. Gullah Geechee culture fills me full of pride. It's a gift from the ancestors, a mantle not to be denied.
I hope you sang along to the chorus. You will hear the lyrics, the words of the chorus throughout this presentation. And the recording is available at the Gullah Geechee Garden exhibit. Here at Brook Green Gardens, you can access the oral history recordings and that song but at www.brookgreen.org/GGG. Now, when we think of Gullah Geechee culture by way of the elements of musicology, we have pitch, which would be reflected in the spirituals, work songs, and field hollers. Rhythm, Gullah Geechee language and African diasporic linguistic connections. Tempo, the generational acceptance and understanding about Gullah Geechee culture. And last, texture, beliefs, values, and traditions. Throughout this presentation, we will be exploring the first two. When we think about pitch, the lyrics of the chorus of the song, "It's not the hand-me-down of slavery." When we think of spirituals, I guess it's best to explore this particular feature by answering those journalistic questions: who, what, when, where, and why. The term spirituals, you see, is met with a range of emotions from pride to revulsion, as are the identifiers given to the people who created and sang them. These include slaves, African slaves, coloreds, Negroes, Blacks, African Americans, Gullahs, Geechees, savages. About who, where, when? Well, the genre, which originated in the United States, was begun by an enslaved people who were not considered part of the country. They were not African Americans at that time. It was begun by an enslaved people. And although 1619 is the recognized date in which Africans were brought to the Virginia colony, documentation reveals that European settlers brought Africans to other locations at earlier times. In fact, as documented in Down by the Riverside, a South Carolina slave community by Charles Joyner, PhD, the first Blacks came to the United States in 1526 and settled where? In Georgetown, South Carolina. Although enslaved Africans in many communities sang spirituals, the first collection of spirituals was documented in the Atlantic Monthly magazine in 1867, as heard by singers on St. Helena Island, South Carolina. These songs were documented by Charlotte Fortin, a freedwoman and the first Black instructor at the Penn School, and also Colonel Thomas Higginson. Now, I grew up hearing and singing spirituals in the St. Helena Island community of Beaufort County, South Carolina, at the Brick Baptist Church, and at Community Sings at Penn Center, where community members gathered monthly from August through May to keep the music of our forebears alive. Michael Row the Boat Ashore is one of the spirituals I remember leading as a child. What? Well, Spirituals originally were unaccompanied, monophonic songs in which singers expressed their burdens and frustrations. Also called sorrow songs, many spirituals include rhythmical and sonic elements that can be traced to Africa, including prominent use of the pentatonic scale, that's the black keys on the piano. Spirituals eventually were developed into harmonized a cappella choral arrangements and popularized by groups such as the Fisk Jubilee Singers and the St. Helena Quartet, who performed them in concerts during the late 1800s and the early 1900s to raise money for their educational institutions. The why of spirituals. Why were they given that name? The term spiritual is derived from spiritual song, stated in the King James Bible's translation of Ephesians 5:19, which says, speaking to yourselves in psalms and hymns and spiritual songs, singing and making melody in your heart to the Lord. Now, Africans, however, brought with them a sense of spirituality, which they expressed in their music and utilized for worship and requests for deliverance. And these things predated or aligned with their conversion to Christianity. European masters banned many of the work and worship activities of the enslaved Africans that involved music and dance. Why? They feared that their West African infusion of polyrhythmic percussive beating on drums revealed pagan idolatry. The enslaved people were forced to perform their music in seclusion, using their hands and their feet. Now, spirituals, in which singers related their conditions under slavery to that of biblical characters who received freedom through faith in God, included, didn't my Lord deliver Daniel? Joshua fit the battle of Jericho, and the song, Oh Mary, Don't You Weep. Here is another recording of a spiritual. It was presented by the Gullah, the Voice of an Island CD that the Athenaeum Press of Coastal Carolina University produced. Unfortunately, it is not playing, but if you go to YouTube, I think it's coming now. Please hold on.
Jesus on the main line, tell him what you want. Oh, tell him what you want. You just tell him what you want. Oh, Jesus on the main line, tell him what you want. Oh, Jesus on the main line now. You just call him up, y'all, call him up and tell him what you want. If you need a holy God, tell him what you want.
forms of spirituals. Now, work songs, field holler music was another early form of African American. It developed in the 1900s, in the 19th century. Now, like spirituals, field hollers had origins in call and response rhythms of West Africa. Field hollers were the cries and hollers of the enslaved Africans, sharecroppers working later in cotton fields, prison chain gangs, railway gangs, or Gandhi dancers, turpentine camp workers, and stevedores. The two genres laid the foundations for the blues, jazz, rhythm and blues, and the gospel. Here is another song, Pay Me My Money Down. It will be sung by Doug Quimby of the Georgia Sea Island Singers. It was a song generally sung on the boat docks as they were loading bales of produce. Let's give it a few more minutes, please.
Pay me, pay me, pay me my money down. Pay me or go to jail. Pay me my money down. You pay me, you owe me. Pay me my money down. Pay me, Mr. Stevie Dog. Pay me my money down. If I had known the boss was blind. I wouldn't have went to work until 9:30. Pay me my money down. You pay me, you owe me. Pay me my money down. Pay me or go to jail. Pay me my money down. I thought I heard the captain say, pay me my money down. Said tomorrow will be your salary day. Young son, pay me my money down. I stay in the house and drink good rum. Pay me my money down. You pay me, you owe me. Pay me my money down. Pay me or go to jail. Pay me my money down. I heard them talking in the deck below. Pay me my money down. If you don't pay me, this ship won't go. Pay me my money down. You pay me, you owe me. Pay me my money down. Pay me or go to jail. Pay me my money down.
And as you listen, the call and response, you can imagine or you can envision them working on the boat docks and that allowed everyone to perform whatever work was being done at the same time. The spiritual music of Gullah Geechee people added to our musical heritage. The folk opera Porgy and Bess. Porgy and Bess first performed in 1935, and its later movie adaptation popularized spirituals, work songs, and other elements of Gullah Geechee culture to a Broadway and an international audience. And South Carolina designated the spiritual as the official state music in 1999. Rhythm is the next theme from the song, Not the Chains of Yesteryear. On the screen are images of Chris Cato and Akua Page, known as Geechee Experience. The two raise awareness about the significance and everyday usage of Gullah Geechee language and culture via social media platforms and in-person presentations. Speechways are a significant aspect of all cultures. For years, the words Gullah and Geechee were considered by many as sources of shame and embarrassment. Community members were strongly encouraged, constantly corrected, trained by speech pathologists, and even physically beaten to alter their speech. It is musical, rhythmic, full-throated, and closely resembles patois of Jamaica, Creole of Sierra Leone, and languages of other cultures of the African diaspora. The picture on the screen is Professor Sun Michaud. He's the Gullah Geechee language professor at Harvard University. The words Gullah and Geechee have unknown origins. On the screen are images of West African Rice Coast and Gold Coast countries. The Rice Coast countries include present-day Senegal, Gambia, Guinea-Bissau, Guinea, Sierra Leone, and Liberia. The Gold Coast countries are Ghana, Nigeria, Togo, and Benin. And the bottom map is of West Central African countries. Each of these are countries from which the ancestors of Gullah Geechee people were brought to this country. The West Central African countries include Cameroon, Gabon, Congo, and Angola. Angola, Gullah sound very much alike. In fact, the word Gullah may be a derivative of that country's name. However, most of the Africans who were brought to the Carolina and Georgia colonies to produce rice came from the Rice Coast countries, and they were enslaved because of their skills and knowledge about rice production. The Gola and Gizi people are tribal groups of Sierra Leone and Liberia, and those also may be origins of the words Gullah and Geechee. In the 1920s, Dr. Lorenzo Dow Turner, our country's first African-American linguist, conducted research among Gullah speakers of coastal South Carolina and Georgia communities. At that time, it was argued that people who spoke Gullah or Geechee did so because of thick tongues, large lips, or low intelligence. Now, he documented that numerous Gullah words and expressions have roots in numerous West African languages and dialects. As such, Gullah wasn't bad English or broken English as many had considered. It, however, was a creolized language which followed West African rules of speech and intonation. During my tenure as a charter member and a former chairman of the Federal Gullah Geechee Cultural Heritage Corridor Commission, many community members from Wilmington, North Carolina, throughout South Carolina and Georgia, all the way down to St. Augustine, Florida, testified that the word Gullah became familiar to them only in the 1900s, or I should say in the 1980s. It was a term used by historians and linguists. Geechee was more commonly heard, but each was considered as words of shame. Now, also, Gullahs were known as the demographic group of low-country Blacks from coastal South Carolina. Well, Geechees were the same demographic from coastal Georgia who lived near the Ogeechee River, which is a name of Native American heritage. Familiar words from numerous countries. Well, Wolof and Mandinka languages of Senegal and Gambia, and Hausa languages of Nigeria, Benin, Ghana, and Congo include hoodoo. Have you heard that spoken before? Well, it's Hausa, and it comes from Hausa, and it means bad luck. The Kikongo and Congo languages of the Republic of Congo and Angola brought us tote, which is Kikongo for carry or haul, something in your hands or on your heads. And most women are familiar with the word tote bags. Biddy also is Congo for a small chicken or baby bird. From the Igbo, Ibibio, Yoruba, and Beni languages of Nigeria, we get unu. That's Igbo for you as a singular plural or possessive pronoun. Bakra is Ibibio for white man. And from the Twi, Fante, and Ga languages of Ghana, we get Nana or Nana. It's Twi for grandmother or elderly woman. Have you heard either of those words? They've become a part of Southern and even American English. The Gullah Bible is a good resource. The Sea Island Translation Team and Literacy Project took more than 20 years to complete the translation of the New Testament. On the screen is a passage from Matthew 5:13. Honor just like salt for all people. But if the salt done lost its taste, in or where you can make them get a good taste back, any. That salt, they ain't good for nothing except chunk them out. If you felt Gullah Geechee challenged, the English from the King James Version reads, "Ye are the salt of the earth, but if the salt has lost its savor, wherewith shall it be salted? It is thenceforth good for nothing, but to cast out and to be trodden underfoot of men." That salt dead ain't good for nothing except chunk them out. It's a musical, rhythmic language. Now, as I said earlier, Gullah was considered as bad English, but because of that, the project did not garner community support initially. The speechway was regarded as a chain that held us back from achieving full success in the larger world. After the Bible's completion, many persons said the imagery of the words made them understand the word of Gullah, the word of God, more fully. Challenges that came about. Gullah Geechee speakers could understand the spoken verses of the Gullah Bible, which is entitled the New Testament, but they had difficulty reading it, while non-Gullah Geechee speakers could more readily adapt to the phonetic spellings, but they had no idea how to pronounce the words. Therefore, as you see on the screen, a CD was produced with Gullah speakers narrating the verses. And that project was entitled Healing for the Soul. This past year, I participated in a historic Gullah tour of Sierra Leone. There were about 52 participants, many from South Carolina and Georgia. We went to a federal building and had to we had to go through a metal detector. I'm diabetic. I carried my insulin. I wear an insulin pump, and I had my my bag with me with my lancets in it. The guards wanted me to leave that on the outside. I said, no, I need to have that with me at all times. My blood sugar at that time was running low. I wanted to keep it in checked. He, as though he could not understand, and he was going to make me leave it. But a female guard came to the rescue, and she demonstrated it for him. She held up her finger and she said, "You gotta chuck it in the finger." And I thought, I should have thought of that, should have passed on when I was receiving some difficulty from the guard. Now, there is no established orthography for a speech that for years had been oral only. But the linguists for the C. Allen Translation Team and Literacy Project used phonetics to write the words. There are differences in expressions and pronunciations throughout the Gullah Geechee Cultural Heritage Corridor. Such in some communities, you may hear "ona," as I grew up hearing on St. Helena Island in Beaufort County. In Charleston, you may hear "hona," and in Conway, you may hear "yuna." "Ona," "hona," and "yuna" are derived from "unu," which is an Igbo word, again for you, as a singular plural or a possessive pronoun. The C. Allen Translation Team and Literacy Project, the linguists, refrained from using apostrophes, arguing that as a language, the speech rate does not reflect substandard English, therefore there were no missing letters. Now, some consider Gullah as a language and Geechee as a dialect of the language. The Gullah Geechee Cultural Heritage Corridor Commission, however, established the term Gullah Geechee as the identifier of the culture, the language, as well as of the people. Now, a few grammatical rules to consider are: substitute SK for words that begin with an STR. Screet, that is, instead of street. Substitute D for words that begin with a TH. Dis for this, or dat for that. Silence the H in some words that begin with TH. Thief for thief, or thunder for thunder. Substitute W for words that begin with a V. Vegetable for vegetable. Substitute B for V in the middle of words. Heaven for heaven. And substitute A or AH for ER or OR word endings, such as river for river. Fush is the way that Gullah Geechee people is the word given for fish. And day clean is the word used for morning, the time of day when everything is fresh and clean. Now, Creole, K-R-I-O, the trade language of Sierra Leone, is closely similar to Gullah Geechee, and this is a song to help you understand some of the similarities.
Gullah Geechee Creole, same tax and sound, yeah, that's so. When I say a word, repeat what you heard. The cousin tongue for true, you see, yo. In Gullah, we say this. In Creole, they say this. For this. In Gullah, we say that. In Creole, they say that. For that. In Gullah, we say honor. In Creole, they say una. For you. In Gullah, we say oman. In Creole, they say woman. For woman. Yeah, we taught the same way. Small. Yeah, we taught the same way. Just leave it. Gullah Geechee Creole, Syntax and sound, yeah, that's so. When I say a word, repeat what you heard. The cousin tongue for true, you see, yo. In Gullah, we say head. Head. In Creole, they say head. For head. In Gullah, we say mouth. Mouth. In Creole, they say mouth. For mouth. In Gullah, we say yes. Yes. In Creole, they say yes. For ears. In Gullah, we say yeti. Yeti. In Creole, they say yeri. For ear. Yeah, we talk the same way. Small, 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 small. Yeah, we talk the same way. Just leave it. Gullah, cousin, talk Creole. Syntax and sound, yeah, that's so. When I say a word, repeat what you heard. The cousin tongue for true, you'll see, yo. In Gullah, we say who that, who that. In Creole, they say who that, for who. In Gullah, we say big oi, big oi. In Creole, they say big yoy, for greedy. In Gullah, we say glad too much. Glad too much. In Creole, they say glad too much. Glad for happy. In Gullah, we say thank you now. Thank you now. In Creole, they say thank you for thank you. Now for plurals, we both do the same thing. We add either them or them. Cheer them, ken them, shoes them, hand them, hands. Clap your hand them, sing with me now. Gullah, cousin, Creole. Syntax and sound, yeah, that's so. Some of them did the same, now yet it me played. The cousin tongue for true, you see, oh.
Gullah cousin to Creole. We have been exploring, let's see, let me find myself, the musicology of Gullah Geechee culture. In part one, we've learned about pitch, spirituals, work songs, and field hollers, and rhythm, Gullah Geechee language, and African diasporic connections. The same program will be repeated throughout April 2021. Now, please inform your friends or pre-register to watch again. Part two will cover tempo and texture, and will begin in May through August 2021. At this time, I'll entertain questions or comments.